with us. This is really a great help when y'all are able to come before the session starts. Of course, this year we do have an extra month, so we've got plenty of time to meet with you in January, but it's such a large agency and you do so much good for the state that it really helps us plan ahead for any needs that y'all have because of some big issues that we have under your umbrella. And Chris, y'all, I think y'all know everybody here, don't you? You work with Lee and Corbin and Chairman Hobson and myself. I'm Walter Michelle, and we appreciate you coming today. And if you could please give us an overview, then we want to drill down to some of the issues that we talked about last year and see what kind of progress we've made on some of those, and give us your projections for next year.
We'll be happy to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to come. It doesn't feel quite as rushed as it does during the session to meet like this. We brought a pretty large group with us here today. We have our two associate commissioners, Jan Craig at the end of the table, Kelly Gray Rhodes also at the end of the table. We also have Frank Puryear. He's our Director of Administrative Services. I think it's your official title. And then we have Marcus is the Deputy Director of Administrative Services. We have so many titles and they change occasionally too. And then we have Chip Jones, who is our Chief Compliance Officer here with us today. You'll recall y'all passed a bill a couple of sessions ago allowing us to build a warehouse. It had us also appoint a Chief Compliance Officer who would be responsible for the contract with the operator. And the Chief Compliance Officer is a person that we had on staff prior to that bill passing, but Chip Jones has taken that role since we have the operator in place. We did give you two different handouts. I'll start with the one that's front and back. And we are the Department of Revenue, so I wanted to talk very briefly with y'all about revenue and kind of where we are and where we've been. The top chart that you see on that sheet, it starts at it says that the distributions of collections for fiscal year 2023. That just shows you what we collected in 2023. So the Department of Revenue collected almost $11 billion in 2023. And sometimes we don't talk about the entire amount that we collect each year. And you can see the breakdown of where that 11 billion goes. So it's the page, Secretary Michelle, that's on the back of yes, sir, it's got a chart. And so out of the almost $11 billion we collected, that breakdown shows you where the legislature has decided to send those funds. And I think this is a neat chart because it shows you what the priorities of the legislature have been. And so we send the money to these places because the legislature has directed us to. So out of the $11 billion that we collected last year, 68% of that went to the general fund. And so you can see most of the money that the Department of Revenue collects, we send to the general fund, but you all have also created diversions or transfers, whatever you want to call them, to all sorts of other places as well. And we just deal with hundreds and hundreds of transfers. We send money to every municipality, every school district, every county, just about every state agency has some type of little diversion that they receive. But you can see where the legislative priorities have been. So out of the $11 billion that we collected, about 8% goes to municipalities. Most of that is your sales tax and your use tax diversions. Transportation gets a big chunk. Most of that's going to be your gas tax type diversions. Education, not only do they get most of the general fund, so if you look at the charts that the Legislative Budget Office puts out, I think y'all send 53% of every dollar that goes into the general fund, y'all send to education. Well, in addition to that 53% out of the general fund, they also get another $565 million diverted to them. And most of that is the Education Enhancement Fund that's part of the sales tax. And so they get just a big chunk off the top that never makes it to the general fund.
Quick question on that is included in that the diversion of the lottery funds that are in excess?
It's not. That's a point I want to make to y'all. This is the stuff. These are the funds we collect. So that the lottery transferred 122 million. I think the first 80 million went to education or transportation. First 80 million went to transportation, then the other 42 million would have gone to education. And so we don't collect those funds, so those don't even show up in our collections. I think another big one that doesn't show up in our collection is I call it the Medicaid bed tax. The hospital assessments, the long-term care assessments. Medicaid actually assesses those things. We don't account for those in these numbers, and so they have big chunks of money that they assess and collect. So these are just the collections that we make. So lottery is not included. in that number. I think the other big one is the ad valorem reduction fund. And so that is funded mostly by sales tax on automobiles. And you all send that money back to the locals to help them with that, to help taxpayers with ad valorem taxes. So when I go in and buy my tag, the legislature has provided a credit, an ad valorem credit. And so, you know, if my tag would be $500 without the credit, it might only be $250 because of the credit. So you all are providing a substantial amount of money to the locals to reduce taxes that are assessed by counties, municipalities, and school districts. That's a tremendous amount of money that y'all send that doesn't always show up in some of the other reports we talk about. That's a huge benefit to the locals. And then the counties, y'all sent 300 million to counties last year, and most of that is the use tax transfers that y'all have set into place, which are fully implemented now. So now, every time there's a dollar paid on use tax, the counties get 15%? It's 15% goes to the counties. And so y'all have got diversions to counties and municipalities for use tax, and then some transportation funds as well. So I like that chart. Just kind of shows you where the priorities of the legislature are. The other thing I wanted to show you all is the chart at the bottom that shows the general fund transfers that we have done. So this is just the money going into the general fund since 2014 all the way up to 2023. And you can see from 2014 to 2018, we were kind of trucking along at about $5.5 billion that we were sending to the general fund each year. And in 2018, 2019, we're looking really good. And if you'll recall, 2020 was looking to be a banner year, and then COVID hit. And so we had a slight dip in 2020 when we were thinking we were going to have a huge surplus. March 2020 happened, and in April and May's collections were pretty bad. And so we ended year over year, we ended on a slight dip in 2020. And then you can see after 2020, the revenue collections just absolutely took off. And so we went from a little over 5.5 billion to almost 7.5 billion in roughly 3 fiscal years. It just really tremendous growth. And you can see by this curve, now our chart didn't show up exactly like it would look like on the screen, so it's a little bit flatter, but the revenue flattens out a little bit last year. And I think the revenue estimating group anticipates revenue will be pretty flat next year. I know the Joint Legislative Budget Committee met and had some discussions about keeping the revenue estimate flat from year to year. And so we do think that things have slowed down a little bit as far as tax growth goes. And I think the ultimate question is, what will that look like in fiscal year 2025? But you can see over the last 3 fiscal years, we've had pretty heavy growth with general fund collections. With that, the others, unless y'all have questions about revenue. Okay.
It was pretty big legislation several years ago when we made the decision for the internet and catalog sellers to pay sales tax to the state. And are they all complying?
So that's like the marketplace facilitator law, and then in general, the folks that are selling stuff on the internet. I would say there is no area where we have 100% compliance and taxation. The Marketplace Facilitator Act has been tremendous. So I didn't look at the numbers before I came. So 6 or 7 years ago, the use tax collections were like 200 million, and now, I mean, even after the transfers on use tax collections. What was the use tax last year? 500? I think the use tax collections last year were like approaching $500 million. That's just the part that we keep now. That's not counting the 300 million we send to the locals.
That's what I want to ask you. One of my mayors in my area complains every year that when we change the diversion from 20% to 18.5%, wants to go, the municipal league, I believe, is in favor of trying to raise that to 20%, the diversion. But that was done, I believe, that when we changed the sales tax from 6% to 7%, so it kind of washed out. But I'd like to know the amount of diversion that they're making now on the use taxes for the.
We could certainly provide that for you. And I can tell you the locals are getting more money than they have in the history of the state. The growth that has gone to the locals, just in the growth on the sales tax diversion, the amount of money they're receiving is as high as it has ever been. And every month when we release the numbers, you see an article or two from a local paper talking about how such and such municipality just hit a record on collections. And so the amount of money, when you count the sales tax diversions that you all have given them, and then you count the use tax diversions that they are now receiving, the amount of money going to the locals is a record amount. It's as high as it's ever been. We could certainly give you a breakdown
Is
of that.
100% of the use tax diversion restricted to transportation uses?
I don't think that it uses the word transportation in the law. I think it's broad enough to include infrastructure. So it would include water, sewer projects and road projects as well. You all made a tweak to that last year. I think I think what the intent of the legislature was is to make sure that those funds are not being used to fund things that aren't essential things. And so I could see why the legislature restricted those things to transportation infrastructure type projects, which when our municipalities get themselves into trouble, it seems to be they've got water, sewer problems, and then the local roads that they have to pave as well.
Okay, thank you. Chairman?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I could ask Corbin this, but it'd be good for all of us to know, are we at the full amount? I know we were climbing up to the full amount. I think it was this past year, the max amount, and is that trying to
Homestead?
18%, 18 and a half?
Oh, you're talking about on the diversion? On the use
On the
tax
use
diversion?
tax diversion
This year, it's full.
for cities and counties.
This year is the first year that it's fully implemented. And
Yeah.
so if you look at the use tax numbers this year, it looks like there's a lot of growth compared to last year, but it's because the diversion stopped growing. The use tax has grown some, but the diversion stopped growing. So we've been hiding the growth in use tax because y'all continue to divert more and more to the locals. So I think the numbers are 15% to the counties, 15% to municipalities, and then another 5% to the local system bridge replacement program, I think is
I
what
couldn't remember
y'all.
what the full percentage was.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was
It's
15 and a
35%.
half or 18% for cities and counties, and I knew that the additional 5%, but
For every dollar y'all
So
collect,
35%.
35 cents goes to the locals.
The rest into general fund?
General fund, yes, sir. Pretty much, yes, sir.
well, you may, Mr. Chairman, if I may, one other question on your transportation, the 630 million that you have that's going to transportation, is that solely, you may have answered this and I just missed it. Is that solely the tax or is there something else that's included?
Is that solely what now?
Solely the gas tax.
Yeah, I think most all of that is the gas tax.
Is there
The-
anything
the
else?
Special things that y'all have appropriated to transportation are
Yeah.
not included in that, but I think most all of that is
I-
gas tax related.
I just wonder if there was any other tool outside of, I knew it wasn't any of the things that we specially appropriated in, but I just wonder if there was any other tool or resource that spent money or put money into your coffers to pay out to transportation. It's just the 18 and a half cents on gas tax, correct?
Yeah, there is some
That's what I
privilege
was-
tax, yeah, but most of it's
Yeah,
gas
that's what I
tax.
was wondering. Privilege tax.
And there's a little bit off of gaming, I think. There's a small amount off of gaming as well that goes to transportation. There's a small amount, I mean, just a very small amount off of gaming that
All
goes.
Sports betting.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They go, but it's a low amount. As far as dollar figure, it's a low amount.
Thank you.
And prior to the internet sellers becoming popular, one common use tax would be like if you bought a car out of state and you came back in Mississippi and you had to pay the tax and other equipment that companies may buy. Is that rolled into this total revenue that you're giving us now, or was that exempted prior to? It's all one classification?
It is one classification, I guess.
All right, sir. If it's a use tax, it's got this, it falls.
But the growth in use tax has been because of the online
Of course, yeah.
things. I mean, it's gone through the roof and,
Yeah.
and doesn't really show a lot of signs of slowing down tremendously. It looks like it's as popular, and all the articles I've read this year about the sales during the Christmas season, the online, nationally at least, the online purchases are way up.
It's kind of a farce to call it really a use tax now because it's really a sales tax. And that's what it says. If you order something on a catalog, Amazon as an example, it'll say sales tax, but I know it's got a separate category. I don't know. if
We've had
there's
some
a time we
interesting,
want to change that.
and I don't know if we want to have a long conversation about this here today, but we've had some interesting conversations in our office because if some merchants you can buy online, but you're buying from a local store, and technically that probably is a sales tax because it's being purchased locally,
Yes.
but how they account for it can affect how it gets reported.
Oh, yeah.
So we spent a lot of time talking through some of those issues.
You know, you get.
Put a lot of people to sleep.
Order a zero-turn lawnmower from Home Depot, $4,000 or $5,000, and if it happens to be out of the state, then it's a use tax. But if they came from their floor at their store in Madison or Ridgeland, it's
And
be
sometimes,
sales tax.
sometimes it depends on how you process it and who's processing it, but technically it'd be a sales tax.
They will. Good deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So the total, so y'all can hear it, 859 million was the total collections, and you can see only 400, was it 400 million went to the general fund? Yeah. Yeah, almost 400 million went to the general fund. So y'all are sending most of it somewhere else.
Okay.
All right, so the front page of your sheet, I just want to give y'all a really brief, I don't have time, and I apologize for last year. I think I spent too much time talking about what all we do, but we just do a whole lot of things. And so I did want to just point out to y'all a couple of stats related to our agency. So the front page of your one-page handout, that's front and back. When I started at the Department of Revenue, of course, having worked here in the legislature and then worked in state government prior to working with the legislature, I had a really good idea of what the Department of Revenue did, but I don't think I fully comprehended how many taxpayers that we come into contact with. And so we have like, I think it's 9 call centers that we operate that we really directly track calls in. We handled almost 474,000 calls last year that we took on those call lines. We also have a Clinton office, and we have offices in other parts of the state, but just in our Clinton office, we handled almost 20,000 walk-in customers, mostly with title issues in Clinton. So just those 2 things alone, we're over 600,000 people that we're interacting with on an annual basis. We process about almost 4 million tax returns in a year. Luckily, about 2.6 million of those are filed electronically. So we really depend on technology in our office, and the ability to accept returns electronically, I think, has transformed our office and makes it possible for us to operate on a daily basis. We have auditors. We conducted almost 5,000 audits last year and assessed almost $46 million. And so we have auditors who've assessed about $46 million. We also have collection officers, we call them revenue officers, who on the compliance side, when somebody does owe us money, they go out and try to collect those funds. So when somebody owes the state taxes, so something that's been finally decided and the money is owed and there are no more appeal rights, the revenue officer attempts to collect those amounts. And those guys collected $160 million last year. They also conducted 56,000 site visits. So these are people out working in the field, making visits to business to make sure they're in compliance with the law, and also trying to collect funds when they're owed to the state. We also process homestead applications. So all the homestead applications that get filed, we have to review. And we had about 670,000 of those that we processed last year. And in motor vehicles, this is one we spent a lot of time on. We issued 841,000 titles last year. I think that was down a little bit from the year before. But we also help the counties. You all know we help the counties with the tags. And so there are state issued tags that we issue out of our office, but we also help supply the counties tags that they issue when folks come in off the street to buy a tag. The counties use our system. We do the ordering of the tags. And so there were 3.1 million tags issued. And out of that 3.1 million in tags, 107,000, almost 108,000 of those tags were the blackout tags that you all approved, I think 2 sessions ago. I wanted to point that out to y'all for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is it's a very popular tag, and those tags generate extra funds that go to the law enforcement officers and firefighters death benefits fund. And I think we have sent, I don't remember the number, 5.2 million to that fund since it was started. And so that fund has benefited greatly by the blackout tags. The other thing about the blackout tags is y'all passed a bill last session. So beginning in January, the License Tag Commission has approved a new state tag, which is kind of a white tag with a blue magnolia image in the middle of it. But you also have mandated that we have a blackout state issued tag. So next year when you go in to get a new tag, you'll have an option of getting the standard state issued tag or the blackout tag. Now the blackout tag right now is only available, I think we call it a vanity tag. You can only get a personalized tag in that, but beginning in January, you will be able to get either the tag that was approved by the License Commission or the blackout tag. We're expecting those tags to be very popular beginning in January. And so one of the things we asked for last session, this was before the bill was passed that allowed them to select a blackout tag. We asked for more funds to make sure that we had enough money to buy new tags for the state so that the counties would have enough inventory. We're anticipating to have a shortage. It's spending authority. We're expecting to have a shortage in our spending authority because we're anticipating the blackout tags are going to be very popular as the standard tag. And the good news is it'll be popular. The bad news is it costs the state more to buy those tags. Those tags are more expensive because they're on a dark background. The letters are raised on them. And so we're expecting to have a little bit of a deficit in our tag appropriation this year. So we'll be asking you all for a deficit appropriation. We've given a rough estimate to the Legislative Budget Office already. We're expecting to update that in January. And right now we're anticipating we could be out of spending authority as early as March in that fund. And what that means is when we run out of spending authority, unless you all give us more authority, we can't buy any more tags for the locals to have when folks show up. So between March and June, it could put us in a pinch if we're not able to get a little bit more spending authority for that fund. And most of that's due to the blackout tag. There's been an increase in shipping costs that contributed to that a little bit, but most of it's due to the blackout tag. So I wanted to put that on your radar. You remember the figures on the difference in the costs for the state? You talking about for the state or for the?
The state issue now that we're having a regular state issue tag.
To the taxpayer or to the state? I'll have to get the figures. I don't think I brought them, but I think it was $2.95, $3 for a regular one, and the others are $1 or $2 more per tag.
Okay, what's the cost of the tax?
I think the difference in cost of taxpayer is $50 that they pay on top of whatever they would normally pay. $50, there's a $50 charge that taxpayers pay, and I think $38 of that goes to the law enforcement and firefighters death benefit fund. So most of that goes to that fund. It will be, so the current blackout tag, when you buy it, you pay $50 extra. 38 goes to the firefighters fund, the law enforcement firefighters fund. And so when the standard issue blackout tag, you all had kept the fees the same, and it goes to the firefighters fund, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Chris, did I understand you that the blackout tags will be general tags soon, that you could just put your, Warren County, WAR?
Yeah, we call it standard issue tag. It'll have a standard number that's chosen by the state. So you go in and you choose either the license tag, commission tag, which is a white and blue tag, or a blackout tag is a standard issue plate. It just costs $50 extra for the
Gotcha.
Standard blackout.
And if you do that, I'm assuming you won't make the numbers the same that are, because you and I have talked about this before. That's been a problem. And for those that don't know, some of the tags that are specialty tags, antique tags is an example that I have, that it can have the same number as another tag in the state.
Yeah.
And it's created confusion for some people who have gotten, I know one gentleman that's gotten 2 toll tag tickets in Florida has gone through, and his number matches another number tag in Mississippi. And if you look at some of the specialty tags, they'll have a unique symbol out to the side, maybe an antique car in his case, or if it's a Mississippi State or Ole Miss or Southern Miss tag, it'll have MS or OM or USM or something, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. All that toll picks up is the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they send it to Mississippi, and the guy or gal that's got 1, 2, 3, 4 on their tag gets a toll notice or a ticket possibly, because in some states they have speeding tickets going through on cameras. So I know that's something that I'm hoping y'all can work on to make sure we don't have a duplication of tag numbers. Certainly with blackout tags, that you can't have the same number as a white tag, because the other states aren't going to know the difference.
They aren't. And we've done some programming. Believe it or not, it takes programming to change all that. And we've done the programming necessary to change the way the letters appear on the tag. So there should not be any duplicate tags between the standard issue plate and the blackout tag. We've programmed it in a way that prohibits those 2 tags from having any duplicates. Yes, sir.
Well, if you can also try to find a way to work on it so we don't get constituent.
We're working on the other issue as well. Yes,
Ag
sir.
numbers being the same.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'd just like to mention that Senator Hickman has joined us, and I see on Zoom, Senator McCon is there. Senator McCon, if you ever have a question, just speak up and we'll recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On that tag issue, would it be your recommendation then for some legislation for us to divert part of that $38 fee for the extra cost of that tag of the $1.50, or would that be the simplest fix?
That would be a fix. Y'all do have money going into a fund that I think will be perfectly adequate to fund this. So we really only need spending authority. But I think with the cost of the materials, the raw materials going up, nothing has stayed the same over the last 3 years as far as costs go, and tags are no exception to that. And so as the price of tags have increased for us to buy, the amount of money that we're able to send to the general fund is going to get less and less. So yeah, I think an increase would not be a bad idea.
And then if a person does go to their county and they're out of blackout tags, would they be told that you just need to buy the state tag, because that'd be an inconvenience for them to have to come back again, or would they mail it to them, or how would that work?
I'll have to check and see what our procedures are on that. Our goal is to not let folks run out of tags. And so that's one of the reasons why we're asking for more spending authority, so that when folks go in to get the tags, it's trickier though, even for the counties to manage their tag inventory. They've got more to keep up with now, and we have more to keep up with now. And so the chance of error, it's there, but our goal is to try to keep that from happening.
Is that blackout tag the highest seller?
I had somebody run the numbers on that a couple of months ago, and I think it was the highest by a good bit, as far as the tags that we'd issued. There was one other group that was very close, or closest. I don't remember which group it was. So Mississippi State? I think Mississippi State ran a fairly close second. And in your defense, I think Ole Miss has a couple different tags. So if you added all those together, you might could get close to Mississippi State.
Of course, they both have national
It's
championship
been
tags.
very popular, and we anticipate when it becomes and we're kind of guessing at this point, but hopefully in January, we can come in and tell you all, hey, it's been really popular. Here's the amount we really think we need. But again, if you all are considering any early deficit appropriation bills, we could be out of funds as early as March. And spending authority, that is, not out of money, but out of spending authority as early as March. Yeah. All right, ABC.
Favorite subject now.
I'm going to breeze through this very quickly. I wanted to point out to you all that the ABC Liquor Warehouse transferred $120 million into state and local coffers last year. Most of that is the markout, not all of it, but most of it. So that's $120 million. Over 10 years, it'll be well over $1 billion that group transfers in to the state coffers. Most of that goes to the general fund. That's an area where the state, it's one of the few areas where the state actually generates revenue in a way that's is not like the other areas, but that is a tremendous input to the state over the next 10 years of $1 billion. We've asked you all for some more funding for building a warehouse. Last year, we asked you all for up to $95 million. We're updating those numbers now. We don't have the updated numbers yet. I anticipate it'll be in that range, but we're getting a little more particular with our estimate this year, including possibly kind of giving you an idea of what we would like to put in the warehouse. The warehouse is not being constructed yet. The Department of Finance and Administration is constructing the warehouse, is responsible for constructing the warehouse. We've hired a consultant to help see us through the entire construction process. They've been working on space study and we've got some studies that we've done and done through the years, but they're going to be the ones that see us through the entire construction process. So they're giving us a space study to show us how it would be laid out, including the most important part, I think, which is what you would want to put in it as far as equipment goes. And so we're anticipating to be able to get that to y'all relatively soon. We don't have it yet. I can tell you what we've produced you in the past is our best estimate that we have to date, which was up to $95 million for a new warehouse. But that's a process that's in progress right now, and we kind of have a plan to issue an RFP as soon as we can get through with the consultant part of that. And then that's really all I had planned to say about the Liquor Distribution Center. And then also just remind you all that we are responsible for enforcing the cannabis laws as it relates to dispensaries. We have 198 licensed dispensaries as of, I think, this week. The Department of Revenue works with the Department of Health to regulate that program. We're responsible for the dispensaries. The Department of Health is responsible for pretty much everything else related to the program, including overall oversight of the program. They've been a good partner to work with. We spent a lot of time working with dispensaries to get that program off the ground. I think a year and a half ago, y'all passed the bill that set that program up. Y'all gave us 6 months to get it off the ground and running. It's off the ground and running, and I think it's going through some growing pains. And most of what I hear is that the number of patients aren't where the industry would like the patients to be. And so at this point, I think we probably have more supply than we have demand in that area. But it is up and running, and we are actively involved in regulating that. The appropriations you all gave us to get that off the ground, I don't have the total amount with me today, but the last 2 sessions, y'all have given us funds to make sure that we could get that up and operating. That allowed us to get it up and operational. And so we appreciate the extra appropriations that y'all gave us the last 2 years to get that program up and going. With that, I'd be happy. The total amount that the cannabis program has generated in revenue. So 38 million in retail sales. The collections have been a little lower. I can get you updated numbers on what it's generated on the collection side. Most of the collections have been in the application fees. And then now we're starting to see a little bit of uptick in the sales tax as well. So 38 million total in retail sales since it started. It really got started in February, March of 2022. 2020, the years run together. Yeah, so y'all passed it in 22. Y'all gave us 6 months to get it going, and I think the first sale was sometime in February of 23.
So we're a little under 40 million. Probably you could extrapolate that to it'll be about 50 million maybe in a year's time. Would that be?
It's growing. It's growing. I have some charts that I hadn't had a chance to look at, but yeah, it's growing. And so I would think it would grow. The number of patients is increasing, although not substantially every month. And so, but the last report I gave, which was a quarterly report, the number of patients had increased a fair percentage since that report. I didn't look at the numbers before I came over. We've got about 30,000 patients now.
That number's relatively close to what was estimated. I think, as I recall, the estimates for revenue on the cannabis tax, and that's, I don't remember if this is retail only or if this included some of the application fees and licensing fees, but I was thinking it was in the 40 to $50 million range. But that, I know people were just guessing when they did that, but that seems to be a number that stands out to me. Is that close? Do you feel like that's close to what you might have expected on that?
So we've had about 11 million in applications and license fees.
And 38 million in retail?
Retail sales.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Chris, I had written down last year that ABC contributed to the general fund about 160 million. Was that inflated from COVID and where we leveled off at 120? Think that's a good?
I believe a little bit of it is related to that, but y'all also did away with the wholesale sales tax. And now it's just collected at the retail level only. It's not collected at the wholesale level. So there's a sales tax reduction. It shouldn't, theoretically, it doesn't reduce the amount of money coming into the state, because historically, when the product was sold, the department collected 7% tax on the wholesale purchase. And then when a retailer turned around and sold it, they could take a credit for the tax they'd already paid. And so it would wash itself out. Y'all did away with that wholesale tax. Maybe it was either a session or 2 sessions ago. You did it for the beer wholesale sales tax one year, and you did it for the liquor a different year. And I don't remember which one came first. But that's going to be the main reason, I think, for the reduction is the wholesale sales tax. So y'all are still collecting it. You're just in a different category now, and we don't track it the same. It's in the sales tax number now.
Okay. And this time last year, our income tax collections had risen nicely from about 2 million to about 2 billion to about 2.4 billion. What do you expect them to be the end of this fiscal year? Whenever we hear a discussion about an income tax cut. It's always good to know what the gross amount is that we're cutting.
I don't have, I have an estimate on that in my files. I don't think I brought that file with me today, but it's going to be down from where it was last year. And it's running 20. We're about 100 million under right now.
Okay.
But, you know, most of that, not all of it, most of that is due to the reduction in income tax that you all passed. Was it last 2 sessions ago? It was 2 sessions ago that you all passed.
Right. Trickling in. It's
Some of it is,
phasing in.
you can see some of it in some particular fields that don't look like they're making quite as much, but most of it is going to be the tax reduction and some other tax things y'all have passed along the way.
Okay, and I don't want to drill down too much on the new facility for the ABC, but I do want to ask a question because every year we have this direct ship bill that comes up for wine. We have wine and grocery stores. We also have the initiative process. If we change that and these, there's 2 big companies, as you could imagine, that could collect the signatures in about 2 weeks to sell wine and grocery stores. So it's realistic that that might occur. What you had one time had said that the wine, the liquor, there was a disparity on the floor space that they took up, that they used versus the revenue. Could you break down the floor space needed for the wine and the floor space needed for liquor and the revenue attributable to each of those?
I can try. I'm going to let Chip Jones, he's our Chief Compliance Officer. You'll have to turn that microphone on. I think I messed the numbers up slightly last year, a little bit last year, but Chip, I think, has some better updated numbers.
Yeah, so wine makes up about 36.5% of our total shipments and about 25.5% of our dollar sales, but about 45% of.
Excuse me, I got lost on that shipments versus dollar sales.
Yeah, 36.5% of shipments.
Speak into the mic so we can hear. Okay,
Yeah, wine makes up 36.5% of shipments, and about 25.5% of dollar sales, whereas spirits makes up 63.5% of shipments and about 74.5% of dollar sales. And then wine takes up about 45% of our total pick locations or our pick faces in the warehouses.
45%.
45% of our pick locations, so pick faces where they go to pick a case to fill an order.
I consider that kind of like floor space, but it's not exactly the same. It's
Correct.
similar.
Yeah, it's about 30, it's 35
Usable floor
to
space.
45% of warehouse space, depending on where it is in the warehouse.
So there's quite a disparity there that the wine seems to be, based on the revenue produced, it's taken up a higher proportion of your space. That generic, you could say that generically.
True. Yeah.
Also, do you have all of that wine? Is it in a refrigerated area or a cooler area?
Some of it is, yeah. We have a conditioned addition that was added in 2003, and the majority of our wines are in that room, and especially anything that's considered fine wine. So anything like it's $15 at retail or higher per bottle, or per 750 milliliter bottle.
Okay. And just your opinion on this: if a wine and grocery store or a direct ship bill were to pass, you would still have to have the wine in there for the, I guess if it's written properly, then even the restaurants would get direct ship. Would it totally take you out of the wine business?
If you wrote a direct ship bill, you could, although if you put wine in grocery stores, you don't have to make it a direct ship. You could still utilize the warehouse if you chose to do so.
And then the liquor stores would still need the wine delivered to them and it would have to come through you.
Yeah.
How much would that cut your wine bottle intake?
Well, it depends on how you write the bill. So if you say the Department of Revenue will still be the warehouser for all wine that comes into the state, we would need, you have an estimate on how much more that would require?
If you've got roughly 500 grocery stores and each one's going to be stocking between 1,000 and 2,000 bottles, it could be anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million. I'm sorry, not bottles, cases. It could be anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million cases of additional startup.
And you would imagine an initial startup amount, and then you would also expect, I would expect at least for your other permittees to not sell as much if people are buying it at grocery stores. So you'll have some reduction. I don't know if it'll be 1 for 1, but you'll have some reduction at the actual existing liquor stores.
Okay.
let's just say department, maybe not.
I think there could be, yes. What I've, and Chip may can speak to this a little bit better. The liquor business is not declining in the number of SKUs or SKUs as they call them. It only seems to be exploding. And so now we don't have nearly enough space to keep in bailment the items that we probably would like to keep in bailment. We have to set some limits on what we can keep in bailment. And so that sometimes results in delays on getting product into the state. We have about, is it 3,000 SKUs?
Just under 3,800.
3,800 SKUs right now. And if you want to special order something, there's another 11,000, 12,000?
Over 12,000.
Over 12,000 things that you can order that we're not able to keep in bailment. And some of those are wines, obviously, but not all of them. I don't think we've taken an official, I think it's a policy decision for the legislature to make. The only thing we ask is if we continue to do it, you all give us the funding that we need, we desperately need to make sure that we're able to do it the right way. And so we don't have an official opinion on whether we should be doing wine and spirits or wine only or spirits only. We can do it. We just need to make sure we get the funding to do the things that y'all have committed to doing so far.
Senator Pecan, you have a question on anything we've spoken of so far? Okay, thank you. Okay, I do have a question on a few items that we covered last year. At one point, you were having difficulty with wages at the ABC warehouse. Is that working out okay?
Yeah.
You weren't losing them all to Amazon plan, are you?
As of June the 19th, the operator took over and I think they were able to give a pay increase. And so I think the wages out there are competitive. And so I think that they've been able to fill the positions that they needed to fill.
They're not in PERS, are they?
They're not.
So that's saving a buck or buck and a half an hour right there,
Yes, sir.
not contributing to PERS. Okay. Yes, sir. Senator Hickman?
The legislation stated that all employees on the warehouse floor would become employees, not of the state, but of the operator. And so we complied with that bill. It's my belief that everybody who wanted a job with the operator and would show up to work had an opportunity to go work with the operator. And we also tried to help current employees who may have been a little longer in our system find other employment within the state if they so desired. So I think so.
One other issue, last year you told me this would cost a couple of $1 million, but my constituent keeps contacting me every year. He's a well-respected tax lawyer in town, was to send taxpayer notices by return receipt requested. He now says, what if you added that fee onto the cost of the penalty? Would that make you whole?
My response on that is we have a state-of-the-art computer system that you can sign up for an account. And we're making a really big push to make sure folks are signing up for accounts. And if you sign up for that account, whenever the department issues an assessment, you will get an email saying you have an assessment. You can actually log in and pull that assessment up on your computer. And all the things I read and hear about the United States Postal Service, we're making it just as easy as we can for taxpayers to be able to go onto that system and see what they need to see and not have to worry about somebody sending certified mail. I've heard as many complaints about certified mail, registered mail. I sent something 2 years ago, registered mail. It showed the person never received it. They received it. I've heard of people signing things and nobody knows who signed it. And so I still believe that technology is the way to go. And we've got the technology in place that folks can log into an account, set up an email address, and when they get an assessment, they get an email saying, hey, you have an assessment. It's pretty quick, and you don't have to wait on the mail.
I very well may give this fellow your phone number, let you talk to him. He asked me to introduce it every year, and I do to help him out, and I don't want to cost the state millions of dollars. But
The cost has not gone down and, we collected $160 million last year, but we didn't collect everything that we're owed. And so I'd anticipate we would not collect everything that we would spend on certified mail.
okay, who else has questions? I don't see, our real estate commission's not here yet. They're up next. So we do have to talk as long.
We're happy to give you all a break.
Time
if
were
you
they
want a
told to
break.
come, Corbin? Okay, we're good. If y'all want to ask any more questions or anything, any of your other folks would like to contribute to the conversation?
Yeah, Frank could give you kind of an overview of the budget request. He's got a quick presentation just in case you all have any other questions about the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting us come today and inviting us to talk about our resources that requesting to carry out the mission of the agency in FY25. Our budget request is fairly straightforward this year, especially compared to previous years where we had, needs out of the warehouse for equipment and implementation of medical cannabis and new issue, the license plate. So for FY25, we're requesting roughly $79.8 million compared to our appropriation for FY24, which was $78.6 million. So we have just slightly over a $1 million increase in our appropriation request, about 1.37%. And for general funds, we are asking for about a 2% increase, or increase about $1.1 million on our general funds. There are a few areas that we're asking for some increases, and then we have a decrease in our capital outlay equipment requests. We're requesting additional 1.1 in resources for salaries to continue to fill additional vacant pens that we have, and to continue to try to move some of our employees closer to what their market salary is, and also for some title changes so that people have job titles and classifications that more closely resemble what they do on a day-to-day basis. We have broken out, just so you can see it, the contractual services for the ABC third-party operator. Our appropriation for that, or what we estimated our cost was in FY24, is $9.8 million. There is a increase in the contract price on a per case basis, beginning the second year of that contract. And then also we were anticipating, maybe a slight increase in the number of cases shipped. So our contractual services request does include $10.7 million for paying for the third-party operator at the warehouse. Just very small, modest increase in commodities and other contractual services. As you can see, our capital outlay for equipment has decreased about $1.1 million. The legislature has worked with us over the past several years to help upgrade some of our equipment out of the warehouse and our computer and technology equipment at our Clinton office. And so for this year, we're looking about $670,000 in resources that we need for capital equipment. The largest part of that being $500,000 to replace data storage hardware. And like I said, we're a very, human resource capital intensive agency and equipment, IT equipment intensive agency. And so the data storage is for flash blade arrays for our servers that are in the Clinton office, which stores all the transactions, that happen through our Mars and Mars system in the Clinton office. And then also for off-site storage that we have to back up our Mars and Marvin tax systems. And so the cost for that is about $600,000 or $500,000. Then we have some other miscellaneous requests for printers, hardware, some server upgrades. And we're asking for $615,000 of funding from the capital expense funds to help cover our capital expense needs for this year. But just to recap, our request this year, is fairly flat, compared to FY24. We don't have a whole lot of extra things going on this year as we've had in past years. Yeah, any questions?
So the legislation required us to base the contract on cost. And so when we bid it out, uh, we bid it out, we scored, one of the scoring points was how much you would charge to ship per case of alcohol. The operator who won the bid happened to be also the lowest cost bidder. It wasn't only scored on cost, but that was it did so happen that was a big component and they were the lowest cost. But each year each year of the 4 years that we've contracted with them, the cost goes up a little bit. And so the difference between last year and this year primarily is the difference in the cost. But we're also anticipating, because they're getting in, they started out a little slower because they were new at it in July. They were still getting ramped up. We are anticipating that they will probably ship more cases next year than they will this year, slightly more. And so when you take those two things into account, the contract cost goes up in year 2. It goes up again in year 3 a little bit, and then year 4 it goes up a little bit as well. But even with those 4 years, they were still the low cost bidder on the contract. So it goes up primarily because of cost, but also because we're anticipating to ship a little bit more next year.
We had 2 senators who joined us, Senator Williams and Delano. Do y'all have anything you'd like to ask real quick? Okay. Well, this is really helpful to us. Thank you. We will be meeting with you in January as well, but this gives us a great head start on what information that we need to start helping you out.
Thank you again for your time.
Being with us. We expect the Real Estate Commission to be here any minute now, and we'll start those hearings at 11 o'clock.
Tina will be in here for that.
Thank you, Rob.
Yes, sir. And I forgot, you came up, thank you, giving a little bit. Yeah.
I came up, huh?
We had a good time. We were just talking about work.
All right, well, good. Thank you. There we go. You gonna hang with us for a while? Okay. Okay, we put that up. This is our bill. Okay, we'll come back to order. Mr. Robert Prater, thank you for being with us today. We wanted to get up, before we dig into the numbers, maybe give us a summary of how the divorce with the appraisal licensure board went. They've totally moved out from under your umbrella, and we gave them $120,000 in seed money, if that was sufficient last year, from best you can tell.
I would think so. They had, I think they had $950,000 whenever that bill passed, giving them an additional 120,000, which put them a little over $1 million. And their budget was under 400,000 per year. So I would think that ought to be enough to get them at least 2 or 3 years. And that brought the total amount of money that the Real Estate Commission had given to the appraisal board since the time that they were first formed in 1991 to a little over $700,000. So I feel like we seeded them quite well.
And just one other issue on that. I'd like to say that y'all are real accessible to the licensees where you're located, but they're in the state office building in downtown. Do you know if they happen to have plans to move where they'd be maybe more accessible to their members, their licensees?
Yeah, I really have no idea. And I do know that they're in the Wolf Oak building.
Yes.
And the director came by the office yesterday. And since they had that water leak there, it happened to be on the floor they were on. So they've only been working 3 days a week for the last couple of months or so. And I think it's been quite a catastrophic event for them.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Would you, your material that you presented to us, would you just have at it?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, last time that we met in December last year, we were talking about the real estate commissioners had already started put some measures in force where we would stop charging for certain things that we charge for. And in light of that fact, in December of last year, the amount of money in the treasury was $3,906,452. That's on the handout that I gave you. I think it's on the last page showing revenue and disbursements. I put the last 3 fiscal years in there just to show you how in the right-hand column, the amount of money in the treasury was increasing every month rather substantially. But since the second quarter of FY23, it's been going down every month. And I think that was the plan that we had, we being staff and the real estate commissioners. And that was also what this subcommittee asked us to do last year. And as of this week, or December 1st, we had $3,631,389 in the state treasury, which was a decrease roughly of about $30,000 per month. And we're just now beginning to see the impact of lowering all the fees. And right now, the only fees that we charge at the Real Estate Commission is a renewal fee to licenses. And we charge a fee for a certification of licensure, which is just $25. And we do not charge any other fees other than an application fee, which, as you know, in the legislation you had passed last year is just $100. So I suspect that we'll see our revenues, our disbursements in excess of revenues, probably $40,000 to $50,000 per month for quite some time now. But I gave you this just so you would be able to verify that we had in fact instituted all of those fees that we had talked to you about a year ago, and that they are beginning to finally take hold. And I think it's going to be a good deal of money given back to the real estate licensees.
Okay, I do have a question on that. The other fees that I'm aware of that you say now are not being charged would be fingerprinting fees. You've waived those?
What kind of fees?
The fingerprinting,
Oh, yeah.
ID checks, how often is that required?
It's required every time you renew or at the time a license is issued, but we do not charge applicants nor licensees for that.
Most people do it in your office, or if they're from far away, how do they get it done?
They could do it either way. They could go to a law enforcement official in their hometown and fill out and have them fill out a fingerprint card and then attest to their fingerprints, or they could come to our office and it's free at our office.
And that's still required every 2 years then?
Every 2 years, yes.
And the other fees would be continuing education. Are you offering the same amount of courses and they're all free now?
Yeah, everything we offer is free. We don't charge at all for CE. And we're doing about one at least every 6 weeks to 2 months now.
Where are you offering those?
Well, as a matter of fact, we're going to offer one tomorrow on the Gulf Coast, but we've offered them all over the state. The last two I did was actually the last three I did was on the Gulf Coast, Columbus, and Hernando in DeSoto County.
You're renting a facility in these,
Yeah, we do.
or at the Board of Realtors?
If the Board of Realtors wants us to do it there, we'll do it there. Otherwise, we'll rent the facility.
And then I recall that we had about 12,500 total licenses last year. Is that about?
Yeah, we have about 14,100 now.
And what's the breakdown? Because the fees are different for renewals between brokers and salespersons.
Yeah, the breakdown is about 2,000 between companies and branches. That leaves about 12,000, of which 4,500 are brokers, and the remainder of them are salespeople. So about 65.
What was the first figure? The 2,000 was the company?
2,000 is companies and branch offices,
Company license, okay.
and that leaves roughly 12,000, and about 4,500 of them are brokers, and 7,500 are salespeople. And that includes both active and inactive.
At one point in last year's legislation, we actually blended two bills together, best of my recollection. We had a reduction in the renewal fees, and in the final bill, the reduction just was for the new licensees. If that would that be catastrophic to you to reduce the annual renewal? Of course, you have the authority to do that.
Yes, we do. And I would think that the commissioners would be more than happy to do that.
Okay. If we did the same thing, we reduced I believe brokers by 50 and the salesperson, they both.
Yeah, I think the last time that we reduced fees from the same level they are now, we reduced the broker fee from 150 to 120, and the sales fee from 120 to 100. That's what we did last time, and that was about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And we left it like that for 2 renewal cycles. And then when the amount of money in the state treasury got down to where it was roughly 1 1/2 years operating expenses, they increased them back up again.
Okay, we put a repeal in last year's bill.
Yes.
That those reductions, so repealed after July 1 of 25. That's not that far away. All we did was reduce the application fee.
Right.
Get the year.
Well, we're getting about 1,700. I don't know what impact several things have happened in the real estate industry nationwide, particularly with some lawsuits and some damages that have been awarded, that people are seeming to think that it's going to be a pretty dramatic decrease in the number of real estate licensees. But just like from last year, we increased about 1,500, and we haven't really seen much of a decrease. We are down to about 100 per month now, new applications, but it's being offset by about 25 or 30 people withdrawing or just going away from the industry. So our net now is still an increase, but instead of about 110 as it was this time last year, we're at about 75 now per month increase.
This question's for our analyst. Corbin, the numbers we talked about earlier were quite a bit less than the 3.6. What was the difference in maybe what we're? I see.
Yeah, I think that we're in a situation where we wouldn't reach, say, 1 year's worth of budget, like this year's 1 million, say 1,000,008. We probably won't reach 1,000,008 for at least another 2 years, perhaps more than that. I don't know what y'all have looked at.
Do you have any licensees, individual salespersons who form a separate LLC as a licensee to operate for a broker?
I'd say about 20% do, and of course, they do it just for income tax purposes. And it has to be an LLC, which all of the fees that are generated through their real estate activity has to be paid by the broker to that LLC. Now, there is a caveat that we allow that's not in the statute. If there's a man and a woman or spouses who are both real estate agents, we allow both of them to be members of that same LLC because they file their income tax jointly. But other than that, it's a single use LLC.
I hear these groups, like sometimes agents get together and form a team.
Yeah, but they cannot do that. They can form an LLC if they want to, but all the monies, according to the state statute, have to be paid directly from the broker to the individual licensees, not to a team. And if they want to turn around then and put it in a team for tax purposes, that's their prerogative.
And if an individual operates under an LLC, does that individual have to pay a license for them individually as well as LLC?
No, they do not.
For all practical purposes, their LLC is the way they're considered to be the agent.
That's right.
All right. At this point, Dr. Hickman, do you have a question? Do we lose? Do we have Senator McCon on there still? Is there anything else on the budget you want to maybe?
No, not really. I just, I would mention to you that we were unable to purchase a vehicle as hard as we tried because of they were having trouble making them, I guess. And the vehicle we wanted was a RAV4, which we couldn't get. They weren't making anything that would fit the price. So we went to a Nissan Rogue, and they did not produce enough of them to provide the entry level. So we've asked for a vehicle again.
Okay. That's for your investigator.
That's for the
You
investigator.
only need one
Just need one. Yeah, we
What's the-
have one.
cost you're going to ask for this.
We asked for 23,000. Year before last, we asked for 28 this
I
year.
don't imagine you could get one.
Well, we asked and they said they thought they could, so that's what we're asking for.
That probably makes you money, doesn't it?
It does.
Investigator. Okay, and that's in there under, let's see, there it is, vehicle 28,000, yes. All right. Any other special requests?
We asked for 2 positions. One of the positions we asked for is an investigator position because we had our investigator retired. We tried for a very short period of time, 2 times to hire somebody. We couldn't hire anybody at the salary. So what we did was we took one of our clerks and started letting them have some of those duties, and we changed the investigator position to a lower position. And so we're wanting to replace that investigator now. And then we're asking for a full human resources operator, combination HR and office manager.
Is that because you were sharing that person with the appraisal board?
Yeah, we were. Actually, the appraisal board and the real estate commission were sharing a couple of different ones, and that really created a much more of a hardship on them than it did on us when they left, because unfortunately, they did not ask for the positions that they needed that I told you last year they would need. So unfortunately, without anybody knowing what was going on, they just got kind of left out in the cold. But I hope y'all, I'm not speaking for them, but I hope you'll remedy that for them this year.
And were there any economies of scale that you maybe lacked this next fiscal year since they're not with you at that time?
No.
Because the amount of officers you were able to.
We were able to use it all.
Okay. I think we're probably gonna come with another bill then on maybe taking where we left off last year and looking at some additional reductions on the license fees. You said you thought your board would be in favor?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you know, if you have a suggestion, if you want to put it statutorily, we certainly have no problem with that, but we can go ahead and I've already talked to them, because when you and I talked last year, as a matter of fact, it was at this meeting that you came in and told me you were going to reduce them, and then as it turned out, they weren't reduced. But I had already told them that that's probably something that they would need to consider, and they don't have a problem with it if you feel like that's something somewhere you want them to go.
Well, knowing the number of licensees, it'd be real simple to calculate what it would cost, affect your budget.
I always do that for them.
If it's 12,000 agents.
But they can,
Times the amount of reduction.
and they typically would make those changes on a July 1st, on the end of a fiscal year. And if you see fit to put it in the statute, of course, there's no problem with that. But if you don't, we can still do it by vote of the commission, because they do have that statutory authority to do it.
I guess this is for whomever. Is there a set fee in the budget already, or, I mean, in the legislation already, in the bill? Or
It is a fee that says up to a certain amount. For real estate brokers, it's up to 150, and for salespeople, it's up to 120. So the real estate commissioners would have the authority to lower that fee at any time.
So, and I guess my question is, I'm just thinking, long-term, that, so you're telling us that if we gave a suggestion, they would take those fees to that point without us changing what's in statute?
Sure, that they did that last year, as a matter of fact.
And I guess my point goes to, Hart Venture, there's some type of hardship or something happen, you know, way down the line, because you guys are pretty set at this point. And I think our idea is that we want to kind of get your special fund down some. But say we cut those fees in half, and then, you know, 5 or 6 years later, you had a hardship, we would have to do it through statute, or it'd probably be easier if you guys voluntarily.
Yeah, it's a lot easier for us to do it, simply because we know if things, like there have been some projections that the number of real estate licensees in the country might decrease by 50%. Well, if that were the case, then all of a sudden we would be in a position where we would be impacted by roughly, our 2-year cycle would give us about an average of 750,000 per year instead of twice that. I mean, but we have a real pulse on exactly how much money we generate. And I would say in a year's time, the amount of money that we generate, we project it out to within 5%. Always have. So it's not, we know exactly just about what we're going to get. We don't know exactly what we're going to spend, but you regulate that, so you know we're not going to spend more than a certain amount.
I guess on that, to that tune, one of the things we could do is a repealer like we had last time, where it only affects for like 3 years. And then we look back at you in 3 years. And if you did get into a crunch, I guess then you could start charging for the things you're giving away now. You could charge.
Yeah, we can.
CE to make up the short term.
Right. Well, we won't ever charge for the most statutorily we can charge for CE is $5 a person. So I don't really think that's going to generate much.
I said.
Yeah, but what we can do, see, the transfer fees, it is really hard to imagine how many people move from one brokerage firm to another in a year's time. When we stopped doing the transfer fees, we cut out per year roughly $300,000. So just by changing that one fee from $25 and $50 down to zero, that dramatically changes our revenue. So that there are still places that we can add back, even if we did have a limitation on the total amount that we can charge for a renewal fee.
We sure thank you for coming down here today. That helps us get a head start. We won't have to meet hopefully very long when we see you in January.
Well, yeah, we did. We came back in January last year. But
We may can get by without you in January. That might be.
if you want to, whenever you send the thing, I'll just send a letter. I'll just return and say, send you a letter and be done with it.
Might be good. We just need to get him a car next year for his investigators.
Yeah, and I need one investigator, an HR office manager, and the car, and I'm done.
That'd be great. Maybe we can save you another visit next year,
That'd be good.
January. Thank you.
Okay, thank y'all very much. I appreciate it so much.
Operator, thank you so much for what you do. Okay, any other questions? All right, we stand adjourned.
Thank you.